Good morning. This is quite a challenge. When Shelley asked me to do this, it's like, whoa, that's a big challenge. And on top of it, I left my notes either at home or they're sitting in the car. So I'm going to kind of wing this. But she asked us to think about what is God doing for you now? So I've contemplated it for a couple weeks. And I have come to the conclusion that he is telling me that I need to relax and rest, which was very fitting for the centering prayer that you read. And the Bible verse that came to me was Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30, which talks about all of you that are weary and burdened, come to me, rest in your soul. It's been a very challenging 2 months for me at work and being short-staffed, which is kind of the theme for a lot of businesses. But I've been in the classroom for 2 months, and it is a privilege. I get to work with these little guys and gals, but I also have my other duties, and that's what gives me a little bit of anxiety and worry that I'm not getting my other duties done. But God has a way of providing for us, and he provided a couple staff that we hired a couple weeks ago. And last week was the first week that I was actually able to be in my office and get things done. So I feel that that's a God thing, but he's also telling me that I need to rest my soul from the busyness besides work, but at home too. That, when you're at home, you think, I got to get this done, this done, this done. And really, yes, but it'll be there tomorrow. And if I get it done, great. If I don't, I'll eventually get it done, or not at all. And there will be a time when I can get it done. That's how I'm looking at it. So I've started doing some meditation in the morning, which has really helped my soul, especially before going to work, before you hit the floor running. And it's kind of funny because I have a little daily devotional, Jesus Calling, and I turned to today's verse, and it talks about anxiety is a result of envisioning the future without me. So the best defense against worry is staying in communication with me. When you turn your thoughts toward me, you can think much more positively. Remember to listen as well as to speak, making your thoughts a dialogue with me. If you must consider upcoming events, follow these rules. Do not linger in the future because anxiety sprouts up like mushrooms when you wander there. Remember the promise of my continual presence. Include me in any imaginary imagery that comes to mind. The mental discipline does not come easily because you are accustomed to being God of your fantasies. However, the reality of my presence with you now and forevermore outshines any fantasy you could ever imagine. And so I thought to myself, well, that's very fitting, that especially about the anxiety and worry, and spending more time with him in his presence and in his word.
Sometime around the millennium, I blew a whistle. As so often happens, those exposed felt the world shaken. And in retaliation, I suffered the fallout. I was disparaged, shunned, set aside, and disenfranchised. Yet I wouldn't back down, I wouldn't recant. All I knew, all I understood at that time was that I must tell the truth and I must live in the truth. And I laid on my bed, looking down at my aching, swollen foot that wouldn't allow me to work. And I looked around at my lovely little apartment that I decorated from Goodwill, the first time I had ever experienced independence, thinking I could lose it all. But I just could not live a lie any longer. They had let me know that if I recanted, if I continued with this lie, my financial problems would be all taken care of. And the bills came in, and the bill collectors started calling, and my foot continued hurting. And a friend suggested, she said, Lisa, why don't you call this new church you've just joined and ask them if they need a translator? A lot of churches need them in Houston. So you can go there, you can put your foot up and help them if anyone calls speaking Spanish. So I did. I called St. Paul's United Methodist Church, asking if they needed help with Spanish translation. And the pastor, sensing something deeper, asked me if he could speak with me. And he came out to visit and asked how they could help. I shared that I couldn't pay the rent that month and I was going to lose my little apartment. Oh my goodness. He returned with a check, and he kindly and he patiently explained that that was not a loan. It was a gift. And it was really new to me that there were no strings attached. And at that moment, I was validated, and I knew love existed. I knew then that there were those who would fight for justice and help to undo wrongs and help undo the wrongs that had been done to me, who had grace and mercy, who loved unconditionally, who believed me, who believed in me. My life began to change. I prayed for healing every time I took communion, and I was unaware till much later that the funding that had kept me from homelessness had come from the love offering given at the altar during communion. Believing I am worthy and that I was made in His image has been my challenge. The immensity of this knowledge has often hit a wall. So strong were the messages of being less and unworthy, and how strong the need to please others at all costs had always been. But with prayer, with communion, with the unconditional love and support of my Christian husband, Paul, of those here at Selah United Methodist Church, and others who have guided me, believed in me, encouraged me along the way, I've begun to feel worthy of God's love and to realize that I do have a purpose. It took me over a year to turn in my application to the deaconess program. I'd never thought deeply about my spirituality, but I thought of the Bible, my relationship to God. But I did know that my daily interactions with my students, so damaged, hurt, afraid, confused, and angry, was beyond my soul capabilities. When I would hear their stories of abuse, of torture, of being trafficked as children by their own families, I knew I needed God's love and guidance more than ever. I would read how the deaconess program would provide that guidance and support to make Jesus Christ known in the fullness of His ministry and mission. And during all those times of self-doubt when I was filling out that application, I kept hearing the voice of a dear friend reminding me, God uses imperfect women. I was sitting at my desk in my classroom when I read the letter that I had been accepted into candidacy. I felt filled with gratitude and peace and validation, and my eyes filled with tears, and I told my co-teacher that I had never felt worthy of such an honor. And she hugged me and reassured me of my worthiness. She was crying as well. So my purpose now, my worthiness, is to grow and learn and share and give, to bring God's love and grace and comfort, support to others who do not feel worthy to have been created in His image, to not let the everyday dealings with frustration, egos, paperwork drudgery, my own self-doubts, distract me from this higher calling. As with the love offering that was given to me that saved me from homelessness, I can give my time, my skills to others in need. God calls me every day to share the same grace and love with those around me, every day with everyone who comes into my life.
Seems to work that way, but I noted that our reading from Timothy this morning really fit with the story that I'm going to share with you. Timothy feels great joy about the fact that he's able to remember God and keep God constantly in his prayers, which is sort of the point of my little story. So I'm going to share how I believe my transition occurred. And I'm talking about a transition from practicing as a faithful Christian to having faith in Christ as the ultimate source of unending love. And I want to note there a disclaimer, I'm not talking about a transformation, rather a transition. Patty, a dear friend, became a sort of legend in my church back in Texas. On a frigid morning after an ice storm, Patty was volunteering at the homeless mission in Fort Worth. Spotting a shoeless woman, Patty immediately handed over her shoes. She finished up serving the food and helping with the worship service in bare feet on a concrete slab of ice. Patty, valedictorian of her class at Texas A&M, renowned geologist at ExxonMobil, suspended her career to be a full-time mom to Charles and Anna. She started a program called Sky's the Limit, and it's a model rocket launching for youth. She developed Rocks in Your Head. It's a curriculum to teach geology to middle schoolers. So she clearly stayed very busy while rearing her family. Things fell to pieces, at least as I saw it at the time. Patty's husband abandoned the family. A while went by. Patty accepted a very prestigious position as a geologist. Her excitement was electric. She was getting back into her field. Not a week later, though, Patty learned she had breast cancer. That job never happened. Next, chemo, surgery. She left the hospital the day after she had a radical mastectomy. Bound for her daughter's basketball game, I drove. Patty cheered, clapped, and smiled through a lot of pain. I recall I wondered, where'd she get that strength? There were bandages on her chest, of course, and a tube draining into a bag. I wondered about that a lot. Sometime later on, a pastor and longtime good friend of Patty's disagreed with some major decisions that Patty was making in her life. The pastor ended the friendship. Patty was, of course, brokenhearted. Patty rather suddenly discovered she had a half-sister because her saintly mom bore a child before marriage. She would refer to that half-sister who she really didn't know as Auntie Diane and kind of shrug and, kind of laugh. I wondered how she continued to hold it all together. She had the breast cancer, raging. During her cancer, Patty trained for the Stephen Ministry and helped families dealing with cancer. She made plans to visit Angels Falls. That's the tallest waterfall in the world in Venezuela. And it was number 1 on her bucket list. Too ill to make the trip. Didn't happen. Though frail, Patty re-energized herself around a walk to Emmaus. She fell not far along into the journey and broke some bones. Journey abruptly aborted. Again, I wondered, how did she cope with yet another setback? Patty's one wish was to live until her daughter Anna finished high school. That didn't happen either. I wondered why that wish was beyond reach. I wondered how these and many other dire setbacks affected my beloved friend, how she kept going. Patty, just being Patty, was key to my eventual understanding that I was looking through a lens that only saw setbacks. God didn't fix stuff. Disappointing. Patty, on the other hand, as a person of unshakable faith, inched ever forward. She knew and loved her place in God's kingdom. I came to understand God not only could, but should be present in every breath. Aha moment. Patty actually completed her journey on earth. I stopped wondering, almost, and accepted the gift of witnessing her graceful divine dance. As her final act of love, Patty donated her body to science. God is here. Of that, I feel ever more certain.